This New Year's Eve, I was begotten without being sought, only by desire. After 9 months and 15 days, I was born very angry, with long nails and a lot of hair, ugly and crying a lot. The labor had been delayed. Would it be a warning of my rebelliousness or future ADHD? There are some memories that I want to share and that indicate my cognitive condition. Without knowing of their existence, I developed defense strategies to overcome some adversities that arose. Others will remain forever. Now I am in the process of reinvention. I am founder of the BRED TDAH Association and of Neurodiversity, a project of job placement for Spanish-speaking neurodivergent people. It is an honor to share my testimony and to be able to help neurodivergent people to achieve their goals. Friends, yeah, it can be done. At school, my teacher was very happy with me. She thought I was very attentive to her explanations, but I was really in my own world. I suffered a lot as a student. My learning problems were important, and my teachers didn't know nor wanted to help me. On the contrary, I suffered the contempt of many of them, their insults and mockery in front of my classmates, even a slap in the face. On one occasion, a teacher told me to read aloud. My nerves betrayed me, and I read very badly. My classmates laughed while the teacher insulted me non-stop. Since then, during the 7 hours I was at school, I repeated silently, "Don't make me read, please, don't make me read." This trauma marked my life, and as an adult, I had to work very hard to overcome it. A teacher recommended that I drop out of school, as I was unable to pass, even though I spent many hours studying. I finally opted for cheating. I'm not proud of it, but it was my only option. I repeated 2 grades. Despite the mockery of my teachers, my classmates liked me. I did not stand out for my good grades or for being an athlete, but for offering immediate and ingenious solutions and for my sincerity and innocence. 30 years later, I learned that many of them admire me for being myself. From a young age, I had an aptitude for drawing and art, but my parents didn't believe in my abilities. They were worried about my future. I grew up confused and pressured, feeling weak. Outside of school, I was also in my world. My mother would send me to go shopping. "Javier, buy a kilo of rice." During the 5 minutes from my house to the store, I would walk repeating, "Rice, rice, rice," but I would come home with a kilo of sugar. My father was going through a bad time at work, and I decided to change schools to avoid that expense to my parents. Relationships with girls were good. I had already gone out with some of them, until one of them made me fall into depression. I was friendly and with a high degree of loyalty and friendship. Throughout my life, many people have taken advantage of this overconfidence. My questions about life, the future, friendship kept tormenting me and kept me from concentrating. I started classical ballet classes, and it helped me to feel much better. I listened to dodecaphonic and electroacoustic music. I closed my eyes and let my mind fly. Music is very important in my life. When I left high school, I was not sure of my path and decided to do my military service, which was mandatory in Spain at the time. I was corporal for real. I was in charge of 200 soldiers. It is not something that I chose, but this facet of leader has accompanied me throughout my whole life. It seems innate in me. Once I finished my military service, I had to decide about my future. I would have liked to study art at the university, but my parents did not accept it. Because of their beliefs and experiences, they did not consider it enough to earn a living. To please them, I thought of studying 2 careers at the same time, computer science and graphic design, with the intention of merging them in the future, something not existent at the time, and about years later I ended up working, although by a road full of obstacles and difficulties. My ideas have always been innovative and disruptive. and my mind has always been very hyperactive. My existential unknowns, my uncertain future, family pressure, and my emotional weakness created a protective shell that made me suffer even more. My failure in computer science and my insistence to draw allowed my father to offer me an opportunity, and I entered as an apprentice in a sculpture workshop. A few months later, the evaluation was negative. I was not good enough for this either. It was a hard blow. My self-esteem dropped a lot. Nobody believed in my strengths. My future looked complicated and the pressure increased. Years later, I entered a sculpture competition and I won the first prize. They found me a job I hated, as an assistant in a photography studio, and I ended up being the boss. On weekends, I would get drunk with my friends to forget about it. When I had some money saved up, I paid for the graphic design studies I wanted so badly. I worked during the day and studied at night. At that time, I met a beautiful medical student, Anna Chan. I fell madly in love with her. Anna believed in me from the beginning. She brought joy and excitement to my life. With her support and having the rest against me, I left that job after 3 long years. Once again, I was starting over, in the shadow of my older brother and younger sister who were successful. I needed to prove that I was able to survive with my effort, and I went to work in the Canary Islands, 3 hours by plane from Valencia. I joined an advertising agency as a creative assistant. Soon after, I was the team leader, but my boss's promises weren't kept and I returned. A friend and I created Hueco Gráfico, my first graphic design and creativity studio. My thirst for knowledge led me to study marketing and advertising. Later on, I graduated in multimedia engineering. In 1993, I married Anna, who supported my crazy ideas and still believed in me. I have always liked to work in a team, and in these years, I created other companies with different partners. We got big clients, we earned a lot of money. We were a small company, admired and envied. The expansion of my company was not good though. My friend and partner had a behavior that I never managed to understand. I always consider my partners as friends, trusting them and giving them more than I received. I believe in people and I trust them no matter what. In 1996, Lucia was born, my first best design, my light and my hope. And in 2001, Jaime, my second son, conquering the world with his presence. Plunged into depression, my wife, a family doctor, advised me to see a psychiatrist and a psychologist. I was very disillusioned, frightened and disoriented. The armor I had built to define myself from the outside was working against me. I was constantly censoring myself. I needed specialized help. Even so, I took over the company that we had closed, changing its name to Next Start. With the support of my wife, who still believed in me, I started to take off again, relying on my employees and delegating, despite Anna's reluctance, what I have always hated, accounting. That overconfidence in people has cost me dearly over the years. The psychological help was very positive. I was in a hyperactive and enterprising phase. I had a heavy workload. I also insisted on facing problems alone, taking on other people's responsibilities. At that time, we realized that our daughter had serious learning problems. At the age of 10, she was diagnosed with ADHD. In Spain, it was not easy to find specialist professionals at the time. Anna took care of Lucia's ADHD and also discovered that our second child had the same disorder. She kept me informed of our children's progress and treatment, while I selfishly looked for solutions to the many ideas I had. They were good ideas, but the timing wasn't right and society wasn't ready to understand them. They say I'm ahead of my time, and that has made me miss opportunities. I started a good training in time management and organization, but it was impossible to finish it. Too bureaucratic and rational for me, a very visual and imaginative person. My rational hemisphere is overridden by my creative one. My chaos is organized within chaos. My ingenuity made clients trust me. I brought disruptive solutions almost immediately. The crisis was deepening. I decapitalized myself trying to save the company and the employees. The hardest thing was to lay them all off. I had only one solution: to move on. I trusted again in other people for the project, and in all cases the same thing happened, the same pattern. Overconfidence again triggered a major existential crisis, falling into another major depression. Then my parents and my father-in-law passed away. At their funerals, I made an act of courage, and despite my trauma of public speaking and the emotion I felt, I gave speech to each of them. I had no enthusiasm for anything. I had no job. I was deteriorating. My wife insisted that I see a psychiatrist again to treat my depression, and also diagnosed me with ADHD, which she was sure I had. She also insisted that I volunteered at an NGO to spend my time doing something useful for others. I finally followed her advice, went to the psychiatrist and got my diagnosis. Javier, you have ADHD. I began to take an interest in the disorders that had marked my life, and I understood many aspects of myself, my children, and other people with ADHD. It meant a new life, and the spark of creativity and entrepreneurship returned. I created my own association, ADHD Network. I started acquiring knowledge about mindfulness, emotional management, coaching, neuroeducation. With Network ADHD, I coordinated a book on ADHD with important authors. We received an award from the Janssen Laboratory. This last year, despite the pandemic, I undertook Neurodiversity, a project funded by the Valencia City Council and aligned with the SDGs of the 2030 Agenda on the inclusion of neurodivergent people in companies. It has been an incredible year, a lot of effort, a lot of illusion. Knowing that I have ADHD has changed my life. Looking back, I see the suffering that ADHD has caused in my life since childhood. My learning problems, lack of concentration, hyperactivity of my mind, my job changes, delegating to other important issues, overconfidence, depression and anxiety, insomnia, irritable colon, in addition to the impulsiveness that has always caused problems in my relationship with my wife. But despite this, we're still together. She says that there is a lot of love between us, and she is right. These experiences also have their positive side. As I can understand my children better, I help them find their way in an easier and less painful way than mine. Now, my goal is to help other people through ADHD Network and Neurodiversity. I'm very proud and very happy to be able to try this. Cheers!